guess who's back? You couldn't stay away.
I couldn't stay away.
Missed it too much. When did you start missing this business?
So I sold the majority of the North Olmsted campus, which is really my first dealership, at the end of March of 2019. And I was actually really fortunate enough to go on a trip to Israel with the Jewish Federation, which was great because it was just a way to close down a deal, jumped on a plane and went to the other side of the world and decompressed and had an amazing time. There was a lot of stuff that I still had to do. The tech company was busy. But I think a few months after that, you know, what I really missed was interacting with clients, and I missed interacting with the team. So it started probably a few months after I sold the dealerships that I kind of felt like, well, I really did miss talking to clients.
To your credit, I think because people felt such a relationship with you, even if they weren't talking to you all the time or you weren't necessarily in their phone, I think they still felt like you were around. So you were so associated with the industry. I think there were some people who didn't even know that you went away either. So.
Well, I also felt like that I'd let them down by not being available to help them. So there are clients that you know, just relied on me for advice or to help or make the transaction quick, easy, simple, frictionless. And when it wasn't like that in some situations, I felt like I had let my friends down, so to speak. So that was another emotion that kind of played into it.
The last time we spoke, and that's when the transition was about to happen, you go, all right, it's time. It's time to pass it on. Obviously, you changed your mind, and I think what's really important here to learn is that we can change our minds.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Well, there's also, you know, obviously COVID was, so the emotional part of it was, I'd say, from last summer through maybe January, but I'm not somebody who would normally make an emotional decision about a career or a business or an investment. But I think COVID changed all the reasons why I got out of the business. So number one, the manufacturers have realized that they don't need giant, huge facilities to do the business of automotive retail. And what that means is that the business can be a lot more variable cost business. So that's number one. Number two is that sadly, because you know, I think there was a lot of movement towards urbanizing cities where people would move downtown. Cleveland was heading that way, lots of apartments. I think COVID and quite frankly, a little bit of the social unrest has made more suburbanization happen. I think kind of along the lines of what happened in the late 60s, honestly. And so when you take that plus the idea that you just don't use Uber like you would have normally because you're thinking, who is this driver? Has he sanitized the car? So I think the idea of personal ownership of car, which was heading down precipitously, has now all taken a V shape back up because I'm gonna live in the suburbs, I'm gonna need to commute places, drive places, and I don't wanna get into a shared vehicle, means people wanna own their own car. And that trend was just literally from one day to the next, snap. So I think the business of automotive retail, which I thought was maybe gonna be in decline, is actually, I think, gonna see a huge resurgence.
So do you think more people are going to be buying even over leasing cars?
No, I think they'll lease or buy. I think that's the same, but it's their car, right? The idea that whether you lease it, buy it, pay cash, it doesn't matter, but I own this car, I sit in this car, I control who gets in this car, I control who touches stuff in this car, right? I control how clean it is. I want to own it, and I'm going to be less comfortable doing shared transportation, which was really getting big. And the real threat that I saw was autonomous driving vehicles, the idea that a car would drive itself, and then so you don't need to own it. I think that still will happen because the technology is already heading that direction, but it's going to be the autonomous car that I own. And I want to control who's in it and who lives in the vehicle. So I think those are the big trends that really were the pivot point for me.
What about electric vehicles? Do you think that that's like what Elon Musk is doing? I mean, do you think he is ahead of the game? Are we going to see the auto industry move or follow his blueprint?
Yeah, no question. That trend is already there. In fact, we're sitting in a Bentley showroom. Bentley has a hybrid already. They have a bunch of electric vehicles coming. Rolls-Royce has electric vehicles coming. Aston Martin is talking about electrification, and that's the highest end brands. Then you take it one notch down, you look at Mercedes, BMW, Audi, huge onslaught of electric vehicles. The challenge for those car companies is that they're really behind Tesla. They have to play massive catch up. Like if you get inside a Tesla and you get inside anybody else's electric vehicle, the Tesla is just much further advanced. I think that's going to change over the next 12 to 24 months when Porsche's already kind of launched its first salvo. Mercedes is coming out with a huge electrification program. BMW's got a huge onslaught of electric vehicles. So I think it's going to be much more competitive for Tesla over the next 12 to 24 months than it's been over the last 12 years. So we'll see how that dynamic changes.
Well, not only do you have a love of this industry, like selling the cars and working with customers, you legit love cars.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like this is the candy shop. So
It
that's
is.
where we're sitting right now in Cleveland Motorsports. So you come back big with like the best that you can buy.
Right.
What made you want to come back to Cleveland Motorsports and buy Cleveland Motorsports?
Yeah, so Terry Raffi, who's who I'm partners with in this store, who I sold it to, he asked me to come back and help him with this dealership. These cars are a little bit more dramatically more actually relationship oriented, and so he wanted me to help, and he asked. I said yes. I was literally on a bike ride one day. I swung by the dealership. He happened to be there. We started talking, and literally a 10-minute conversation. Next thing I know, I'm working 60 hours a week doing this. But you know, these are the cars I love, so it's great to be around them. I'll give you a little secret. The cars that I really like are the furthest from the door. Because if I really love a car, I'm like, I have to put that deep into the showroom so I don't drive it.
What's your favorite one in the showroom right now?
The closest ones to the window. The ones that are furthest from that door. So no, the Bentley Continental GT is just a great car. Yeah. It's funny, when I have clients that come in here, and there's a perception about Bentley, right? That, oh my God, am I sending the wrong message, et cetera, et cetera. And what I'll do is I'll then walk that client over to the Rolls-Royce showroom, which is so far over the top in terms of a vehicle that when they come back into Bentley, it seems almost practical.
It was always my father's dream car. You know, like when you're a kid, you think, when I'm older someday, like when I'm big, I'm gonna buy you this, right? So I think when we were all children, we thought, we wanna buy our dad a Bentley someday.
Sure.
The Cleveland market, I mean, these are really beautiful cars. So you don't see a lot of Bentleys, Rolls-Royce, Aston Martin in the Cleveland area. Do you think that can change and shift, or are you selling all over the country? Well,
we certainly sell all over the country for sure, but I think that's also changing. Like I said, if somebody pulls up, you know, in a Bentley Flying Spur versus a Mercedes Maybach or a Mercedes S560, I think the person who would be offended by the fact that you're driving, oh my God, you're driving this crazy Bentley, is probably going to be equally offended by the Mercedes.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see a lot more of these cars around, because it's socially not as much of an issue as maybe it was as a stigma. And certainly these clients have the aptitude. In other words, they don't need to drive a Bentley for people to go, oh my God, I didn't realize you were wealthy. I thought you were poor, but you're driving a Bentley, yeah. Right? They're obviously successful entrepreneurs, successful surgeons, successful practitioners of all kinds of sorts. And this car doesn't change that. And on top of that, they probably have these kinds of cars at their second homes. So why not have it here and enjoy it here? I don't think that's an issue.
Oh, no. I get excited when I see them on the road, especially when you don't get to see them as much. You know, you go down to the Florida area, whether you're in
Everywhere.
Miami or Naples, they're all over the place. So when you see them up here, it's kind of special and fun to see on the road.
Yeah, no question. And you know what's also interesting is the pricing of these cars hasn't moved the same way pricing of cars less expensive has changed. So meaning, you know, back a long time ago, the most expensive Lexus was $35,000, right? That was it. Today, there's Lexus that costs well over $100,000, sometimes $200,000. And at the same time, you look at Bentley, we have the new Bentley SUV is actually about the same price as a Range Rover. So when you see a Range Rover, you don't think, oh my God, that's the craziest car I've ever seen. You have Range Rovers that are almost the same price as Bentleys.
Why do you think the price has not shifted over the years?
Because I think these brands, between Aston, Bentley, and Rolls, they've been more realistic about what their pricing should be. I think it used to be they priced these cars, you know, just way, way high, and they sold a sliver of them. But you know, Bentley's owned by Volkswagen Group, which is Porsche, BMW. Porsche, Bentley, Lamborghini, Audi. So the componentry in the cars allowed them also to make the cars less expensive. So that's shift number one. Rolls-Royce is owned by BMW. So it allowed them, not that it shares anything in common with a BMW, but it allows them to be more efficient and therefore be able to price the cars more realistically. Aston Martin uses virtually all Mercedes-Benz componentry, the engine, transmission, electronics. So the cars can be priced much more aggressively. You know, an Aston Martin Vantage is a car you can lease for $1,600, $1,700, $1,800 a month. I mean, obviously that's a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but it's not an obscene number versus what it would cost to lease an equivalent BMW or Mercedes or even Audi R8. Those cars are equally, if not more expensive. So I think that's why you'll see a lot more. These are not going to be, it's hard in today's environment to be a niche manufacturer where you make a very small number of cars, and I think that's changing.
So let's talk about one of your favorite things, feelings. When you came back into this building, like, what did it feel like? What did it feel like home to sit back in the office and just like get right back into it?
Well, you know, actually, like I said, the most important thing is really interacting with clients and having that relationship and building relationships and being in a scenario where you could give somebody good advice and be able to make it easy, which is really the thing that I think we do here better than anywhere, is just make it easy. It's just easy to buy a car here. It's not complicated. We don't put you through any kind of process. It's just very, very frictionless, quick, and easy.
Yeah, so I think your longtime customers know to expect that from you. Anybody who hasn't worked with you, that's what you want them to know.
Exactly, absolutely. It doesn't have to be, buying a car doesn't have to be complicated. And by the way, we can get you anything. So a lot of times, you know, just because we sell new Astons, Bentleys, and Rolls doesn't mean we can't find you a great pre-owned one. And all three of those companies have great certification programs. So, for example, we just sold the 2012 Bentley GT in mid-70s. And that car will have a 2 up to a 3-year warranty, bumper to bumper from Bentley. So a $75,000 car is an expensive car, but remember, the average price car is almost $35,000 today. So to be able to drive a Bentley in the mid-70s, right, and have a full warranty, and the car looks brand new, 12,000 miles, it's a good way to go. So we can do that, and we can find those cars for clients.
Having worked around you now for a long time and seeing the people who work for you, you really know how to assemble a great team. Let's talk a little bit about that here at Cleveland Motorsports. I mean, it's quiet around here, right? So you're not going to have a ton of people coming and going on your staff, but what's the group that you put together here? Yeah,
so Dan Ritchie, you know, he's 31 years old. He's worked with me now for over 10 years. So it's great to have him here. He knows the cars cold, knows them inside out, upside down. He's super committed to clients, knows kind of the program, as I call it, which is no matter what, client comes first, no matter what you're doing, you answer the phone, you respond immediately. So Dan is a key part of this team for sure. We have Jesse Huber, who's worked with me for a long time as well. He runs our drive options program, but he's also now going to be part of the team here at Cleveland Motorsports. And he's super responsive to clients. You don't find anybody who is quicker and more adept than him. Fortunate, my son has his last year at Michigan, and he had some time, so he'll be here working in sales. I think he's got a little bit of the bug, so we'll see how that goes. But it's great to be able to drive into work with him every day and see him get excited about working with clients and that type of thing. And so we have a great team. We brought Jared Jones, who's worked with us at Drive Options, who kind of helps us get everything organized. So it's a small team, but we're really excited about it. Then we have a great service team over at that the Raffi Group runs that takes care of service, and we have great administrative help. And being plugged in with Raffi helps a lot because that infrastructure that you need to run a dealership exists without us having to do that here independently.
Is this it? Is
oh,
there only
no.
one dealer? No, I wouldn't think so. Just in Cleveland? Because I know at one point you were
yeah,
in multiple states.
This is probably, honestly, this is the brands that I want to work with here in Cleveland. But there's a lot of other opportunities. I still have the Infiniti dealership in Coral Gables, Florida. I have a partner down there who's absolutely amazing, 29 years old. He's as sharp as they come. And he's got now 8 or 9 dealerships. So he's my partner in Coral Gables, and he has other dealerships that he runs. So we're going to look to see how maybe him and I can work together to do some dealerships where He brings the used car focus, operational focus, the energy of a 29-year-old, and I can bring in some of the philosophies that I have, and we'll see if there's dealerships around the country. I'm bullish on cities that are near metro areas, have a low expense structure, and with good, well-established brands. So those are the dealerships that we'll look at purchasing. And then we've made a great connection and relationship with a gentleman who basically invented Google Docs, sold his company to Google, super smart tech entrepreneur, because I think the future of this is how do you make this whole process more digital, more frictionless, and who better to learn from than that. So I think between Oleg and Jonathan, Rochelle and myself, we'll look at opportunities for buying more dealerships together.
So when you say that, how do you make it more of a digital type of experience? It was over the next, 3-5 years, like what is it going to look like buying a car?
Yeah, so think about, so when the internet came out, sadly I was old enough to remember that, right? It was the idea of even putting your inventory online was crazy, right? The idea that, but the philosophy was, well, if you put all your inventory online, there's no reason the customer's going to call you because they'll know what you have, right? It's like, well, we got past that. Then it was, okay, well, put pictures online. Oh my gosh. Then if they see the car and the picture, they'll never come to your dealership. Then the big one was, are you ready, drumbeat? We're going to put the price online. What? Now, if you put the price, there's no way they'll ever need to call you because now the client could shop transparently, right? So if I see a car in Chicago that's this price and I see yours and this one's Chicago's cheaper, why would I come see you? And dealers had to get over that. So the dealerships kind of jumped into that. That was mid to late 90s. But since then, the process really hasn't improved digitally at all. Think about when you buy literally, and I'm not analogizing because buying a car is very, very different than buying something on Amazon, but can we make it easier? Can we provide more information online, more videos, more interactiveness that you don't have to come in? We can talk. Now, we've done that, I call it the hard way, with phone calls, text messaging, and that type of thing, but there's certainly ways to digitize all that. And if I look at Jonathan's background, he started what became Google Docs. The idea was, hey, I have an Excel spreadsheet. I want you and I to work together on this Excel spreadsheet. And the process is just really cumbersome. And next thing you know, Google Docs is born, right? Or the company that he started became Google Docs, which is something that we just use all the time now. And what would we do if we didn't have that? So how can we use that kind of technology to have interaction with a client that is virtual? Because like we've talked about, COVID has changed a lot. So am I going to want to come in, even if it's not about the time, but am I comfortable in a showroom? Do I have the time to do that? Whereas maybe we can do some of this stuff virtually. And I think that's where Jonathan's expertise will come in. Oleg's expertise is really understanding the used car market and how to operationalize. And I think I bring the luxury experience and team and culture. So I think the three of us will make a good team, so we'll see.
Yeah, and I think when you look back, when you talk about like the 90s, there was a stigma associated with the car industry too, right? And I think as a customer, you're hopping around from place to place, wanting to get the best deal, thinking somebody's gonna take you for a ride. And now you're talking about full transparency, like it's shifted into full transparency. Right. So on your end, people can do their research online. Right. They know about what they're gonna pay, they know what's fair. So it really then, to keep the customer, it's about the relationship. Is that how you win now in this industry?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, one of my favorite movies is Miracle on 34th Street, right? And you know the most important part of that movie is when they go over to see the real Santa Claus, and he tells them that you can buy this at another store for less money. And that scene is, probably for 99% of retailers at the time, that's crazy. I mean, how would you tell somebody to go buy something else somewhere else? But the reality is that endures more loyalty to the person in the store who's giving you that advice. That's happened to me, where I've gone to the store and I say, we don't have it, but this other place does. And they'll take care of you there. And you look at it and go, wow. I mean, so it's not just you need to grab every dollar from me. That really, what I'd rather do is build a relationship with you and have me be the place that you go to get advice. So we do that, and we've been doing that, and we'll continue to do that. And we're going to accelerate that more. Where I look at it and say, hey, here's a pre-owned vehicle. Here's our car. It's priced at $75,000. There's 27 others in the country. There's 4 that are less expensive than ours. And let's go through the pluses and minuses. This one hey, this one probably is a better deal, right? You could maybe save a couple $1,000s. Now it's in California, right? So now you factor having to get the car here, da, 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 da. By the time you do that, you're gonna be close enough. And the one we have is here, you like it. This is, full transparency as opposed to hiding, right? Saying, I believe that a client, when given full information in a transparent way, they feel more comfortable and it's easier for them to make a decision than if they don't feel they have all the answers. Even if you knew, hey, listen, I know I bought this car, I could have gotten it for $800 less somewhere else, but I know that and I'm okay with that and I'm gonna continue to make the deal. As opposed to, they think, well, what if it's $8,000 less somewhere else? And that doubt will prevent me from finalizing the transaction. That's what a lot of people, especially in the retail automotive business, don't understand. They think that you have to hide all that, keep your cards close to your vest. It's a war between dealers and you want to try to dupe somebody. And customers, that just doesn't work in today's world. We live in a massively transparent world. I mean, look at Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I mean, like, our lives are just out there. There's no hiding anything.
You've got to be authentic
exactly.
and honest, or people will see right through the
Exactly.
BS.
Exactly. It's too easy, right? It's just too easy to find all this stuff out. And so you're better off being on the ahead of that curve than behind it.
So you mostly sell luxury brand. You also sold some that were high volume stores.
I won't do that again.
Okay.
So if for me, if I call it, this is maybe 3.0 for me, because 1.0 was when I entered the retail business, working for somebody else. That has its pluses and minuses. 2.0 was my own thing, no partners. I owned all the dealerships myself. Stratus of everything from literally Volkswagen and Kia to Rolls-Royce. 3.0 is going to be with partners that bring value. So here, Terry brings a lot of value to this partnership. A lot. I mean, a tremendous amount. I definitely would have no interest in doing this if it were just me, because it's just these brands can't support all the back-end office operations they need. So Terry brings a lot of value here. Hopefully I bring value to him. That's what makes a partnership work. And then for other dealerships in other markets, it will be with Oleg and Jonathan, where we each bring something to the party and only and exclusively focused on luxury brands.
That's so what an interesting shift too, because when it's just you, like you're the one who makes the call, right? It is your way. Going into a partnership, I mean, that's, you've been married for a long time, right? You understand, right?
Right.
A partnership means compromising and meeting each other sometimes halfway. Is it an age thing where you also entered into enjoying partnerships? Because some people may embrace it and some people may not.
It's hard. It's hard. Money is obviously what gets a lot of people twisted. You have to have a great relationship, and you have to know that you can shake somebody's hand, although I guess in COVID we can't anymore, but metaphorically, shake somebody's hand and know that they stand behind the honor of their word. And I think that's the case with Terry for sure. It's the case with Jonathan and Oleg. And you're going to have disagreements, just like a marriage. I mean, I've been married 31 years. My wife's my best friend, greatest decision I ever made. Does that mean we never argue? Of course not. That's crazy. But it means that you approach it with how do we solve this? And if you have the guiding light of your mission and your values and say, this is what we want to accomplish, this is what's most important, you can work through all those issues. But yeah, for sure that happens with age. But the other part is, what does each partner bring into the equation? And to make sure you're not overlapping, right? That I'm not bringing the exact, if I have a partner that brings the exact same thing that I bring, there's going to be conflict there because we may not do it the same and we're in the same space. So in the case of, like I said, go back to Jonathan, he's not going to be telling me, hey, this is how you run a dealership, this is how you create a team and a luxury experience, because that's just not what he's done. It doesn't mean he doesn't have a point of view and that he will add value to that conversation. But he has his lane, I have my lane, Oleg has his lane. And when there's intersections between those, you work those out.
The tech industry is something that you really got excited about, that you're still involved with. Are you also all in on that? Have
Absolutely.
You dialed it back in any way?
No, all in. I mean, the difference is there. I have a great CEO. Shane Bigelow does a great job. Bo Shim, who's our CTO, does a great job. They've got that piece worked out really well, and that's what it's allowed me over the last year and a half, where I took this pause from the retail business, is to really make certain that that team was fully intact. We got venture funding already, which is the greatest endorsement you can get. And what they're doing is so integral to what I see as a vision for the automotive business, which is the one piece that hasn't been tackled is the paperwork. Like if you said to me right now, hey, listen, I've been staring at this white car behind me. I can't take it anymore. I want it. The process to get you to take it, not convince you to take it. That's the upfront part. It's already done. It's just, I want to drive off and have that be my car. Still too slow, just way too slow. The process of paperwork intensity to do that isn't quick. So we have to fix that. And I think that's where between Onum and between what Jonathan will bring to the party, I think there is where we can make that be really fast.
I
it should
agree
be,
with
right?
you.
That should be the
so
fastest
much
part.
faster. Same with when you buy a home. If you see a home that you want, it's for sale, you should be able to move in that day if you
exactly.
want to.
You can't, it's impossible. Right now, the paradigm would be nuts. I mean, my mom was in real estate. I actually ran her accounting in her real estate office. The idea that you buy a house and you could close in 60 days is considered fast, right? And again, a car is not 60 days, but it's just too long, right? So there's the complexity and the frictionless. So I'm hoping, and I'm pretty optimistic that the manufacturers and the big auto lenders have realized that we have to open a door to the possibility that maybe some things will go wrong, but it's worth it for the things that will go right by making this process just so much quicker and easier.
And it was sometime maybe, I don't know, maybe over a year ago when did you start Blockchain or Blockline Cleveland?
About 2.5 years ago.
Okay, so 2.5 years ago, Blockline Cleveland starts. And I remember listening to you say, doing this in Cleveland is like making a cake and all you have is water, right? In other words, I know I've got a big hill to climb.
Right.
Have we made progress? Do you still believe that about the city? Do you still have hope for the city that tech can be a huge part of our growth? Where are you on that?
We haven't made enough progress there at all. I think we have some entrenched organizations in town that have a really hard time shifting their paradigms. So I don't think it's impossible, but we haven't moved the ball forward very much. If this were a football field, I think we maybe went 3 yards. So it's definitely, what I see as hopeful is that you have a lot of leadership positions in the community that are about to change over, that are significant. And there's a group of people and energy around, hey, those organizations have this, we have to change that philosophy. So I think that if that happens, when that happens, I think we've seen it in 2 organizations. I would point to 2 organizations as most hopeful in Cleveland. Number 1, Cleveland State. Harlan Sands has been what I hoped he would be, which is more transformative leader for Cleveland State. He's doing some big things. And I think you're gonna look back in 5 to 10 years and look at what he will have done and say, wow, that really changed Cleveland State University. Akram Boutros, which is why I'm on his board, has absolutely flipped Metro on its head. And it's an organization that's just bears no resemblance to the Metro Health of 10 years ago. And he hasn't even gotten started yet. So I think what people at other organizations that haven't changed and that are organizations that are supposed to do these things, look at those 2 examples. I think the boards and the people who are in charge of deciding who the CEOs of those organizations are will look at those and goes, we need to be more like that. We need to really transform and be big thing. Cleveland is, prior to COVID, we were in, we faced an uphill battle, let's just be honest. I love it here. I'm not going anywhere. My house was for sale. It made news, which is kind of funny to me because I'm like, am I the only person in Cleveland that's ever moved?
I know. I wondered the same thing. I was like, why?
It happens all the time. I'm like slow news day, right? I mean, holy crap, this is bizarre. If we made a story about everybody in Cleveland who moved, I think it'd be a big newspaper. But
well, it's like you had 4 children, and now you don't have 4 children.
Well, I still have 4 children.
What I was going to say is living at home.
I'm teasing.
You still have 4 children.
Still have 4 children. But it's crazy. So
room.
Obviously that happens all the time. But it's just mentality, right?
Yeah.
The idea that I think we had this kind of headwind, and COVID gave us a lot more headwinds. Let's just be honest. I mean, it's on the positive side, people from major cities want to move someplace. We're not on the radar yet. People aren't thinking about Cleveland yet. They're thinking about Nashville. They're thinking about Denver. They're thinking about Miami a lot. I mean, if you go to Miami, Miami was created by South Americans and Cubans. I mean, if you look at Miami and you look at the history, that city grew from South Americans that immigrated there and Cubans that immigrated there. And now South American immigration and Cuban immigration is almost over for a lot of reasons, yet it's growing exponentially because New Yorkers are moving to Miami. You go to Miami Beach, you think you're in Manhattan now. And so the growth there, so they're not thinking about Cleveland is my point. So we have to get back on the map for that. Downtown is under attack. I mean, let's be honest. It's 20% of the people are 20% of capacity of what it used to be. It used to be it was too low. You can't support restaurants. You know, probably the greatest restaurant that you want to take somebody to if you're from out of town. If you had an out of town friend and said, I want to really impress them, I'm going to show them Cleveland. I'm going to take them out tonight. It would be?
In Cleveland?
In Cleveland. Like you want to blow away your out of town friends, you would take them to what restaurant?
Well, I've only been for drinks. I think right now you're getting at Marble Room, right?
Right, sure. And because people walk in there like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Right? Impressive, beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
It's not what people who aren't from Cleveland think of Cleveland. They think of Cleveland as like a shuttered factory with broken windows. But you walk into Marble Room, you're like, oh my God, it's Cleveland.
You want to take them to the water.
Exactly. But it's closed, and it's going to continue to be closed because they can't open when the downtown has 20% capacity and restaurants are forced to only be able to space people 50. You just can't sustain, the business is sustainable. Right. It's like if you said to me, I want you to open a dealership, but instead of selling 20 or 30 cars a month, I want you to sell 2. Well, I'm not going to open. It's cheaper for me not to open than to open incorrectly. You just can't have a menu and fresh food and fresh seafood and serve 10 people. It just doesn't work. So we have to fix that. And part of it is all the leaders of these companies downtown have got to say, we either believe in downtown Cleveland or we don't. And if we believe in downtown Cleveland, we've got to figure it out how we get people back into downtown safely. And it can be done. We just have to have the will to make that happen. And if we lose the will to make that happen, downtown Cleveland could be gone for a generation.
Well, because let's think about the other piece of this. Now, because of COVID, companies have had to pivot and shift, and people are working from home. So if you have a huge lease in a downtown area and that's coming up, and you've figured out how to have your employees work remotely, so then does that become a long-term issue too?
It is, but I think there's novelty to everything. And certainly when COVID started in March and you said, okay, we can work remotely, Zoom meetings, blah, 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 all that's great. But you can't create a culture and you can't create human interaction when we're sitting in front of a two-dimensional screen all day, building a relationship with people. You just can't. Because I could talk to you like this remotely, but it's totally different when we're in person. Humans are animals, we're not computers. We're not computers. Right? Computers can talk to each other remotely all day long, right? Computer in Russia talks to a computer in Silicon Valley probably a million times a second, right? Yeah. And it's fine. Humans are not designed to do that. Humans are designed for interaction. I remember COVID started, I took a trip to Florida, which became news.
Documented.
Evidently that was a slow news day too.
So take it down.
Yeah, exactly. So that was when I got back from Florida. I didn't travel again until July. Didn't go out to eat to a restaurant, and it had been probably 3 months. I go out to eat a lot because again, it's just my wife and I. My wife's a great cook and we eat at home, but we do like to go out to eat. And I remember the first time I went to a restaurant, I was like, "Man, I miss this." It's just nice, right? It's just nice sitting with somebody and just talking about anything. When you jump on a Zoom call, it's business. Let's go, right? Did you complete this? Task. When you're sitting, why do you say to somebody, hey, let's grab dinner, let's grab lunch, let's grab coffee? It's not because you want a cup of coffee, right? It's because you want human interaction. So the point being, leaders in Cleveland who own companies, who run companies, who establish policies, we got to figure out how to get people back downtown. If we don't figure that out, cities like downtown Cleveland are going to be in big trouble. Yeah. And again, I just told you it works against my other opposing force, which is that if people stay at home, learn to work remotely and be in suburban areas, it's going to help me personally because it's going to be more personal transportation and more need for cars. But as somebody who thinks, you really have to look at the bigger picture, I'd sacrifice the first part if it meant getting people back into urban areas, because otherwise we're going to leave a lot of people behind.
One of the companies that you started, Drive Options, that's still running, and that's something that anybody who's a customer here at Cleveland Motorsports can, well, really anybody can take part in it, right? It's open to everyone. But how are you kind of merging the two here?
Yeah, so Drive Options is a great program. It allows, obviously we took a hit during COVID because we drove a lot less. So one of the magic of Drive Options is that you only pay for the car when you're using it. So unlike a lease, you say, I'm gonna pay $2,000 a month on a lease. If you go travel for 3 weeks, the leasing company doesn't care. Like, you still owe me $2,000, right? Whereas with Drive Options, you can pause, then come back and restart, and you've only paid for 1 week of usage of that month. So it works out really well. So when we get back to a more normal situation, I think Drive Options will take back off. And so we decided, and then the second piece of Drive Options is that this, as much as you love that white car, it's not going to meet every need that you have. You're going to take your niece somewhere. You're going to take another couple out somewhere. Not a great car for a backseat couple. So you can come in and say, hey, I want a 7-passenger SUV, I want a convertible, I want a 4-door, I want a car that, I don't want to drive that car because it's really crappy, it's raining today, I want to drive something else. So you can take one of our Drive Options vehicles that way. So we enroll everybody automatically who buys a car from Cleveland Motorsports. We waive all their fees, and then they can use Drive Options anytime they like.
Yeah, that's a great service. Huge bonus. Talk about the fleet. What kind of cars are available with Drive Options?
Sure. So we have everything from luxury brands, Mercedes, BMW, Audi. We have Tesla in the fleet.
Oh,
we have
that's exciting.
Volvo in the fleet, which actually is a really cool car. The other way is, let's say you ship that car to Florida and you're gone for 6 months, but you come back for 2 weeks and you need a car for 2 weeks. Drive Options. So you do Drive Options for while your car's in Florida, right? You come up here and you you get a Drive Options car for the time that you're here. So it works out really well. So they've in the variety. So that's, I think, a really great benefit for clients that are buying Aston Martins, Rolls Royces, and Bentleys.
Okay. And one other thing, kind of shifting back, that I want to talk about before we go. I know you've said before, sometimes you get yourself in trouble on Twitter.
All the time. What do you mean, sometimes? I get myself in trouble all the time on Twitter.
The thing is, not everyone, we're not always going to agree with each other. So maybe not everyone shares your point of view, but you are well read, and you do care about your community, and you do care about business. That I know, and that I think people are going to have a tough time arguing with. Do you want to stick to also sharing what you know and your opinions? Does the backlash ever make you want to pull back, or are you going to like dig in and say, I'm not going to be afraid of somebody giving me pushback or bullying me on my views?
So first of all, I think a few things. Number one, all of us should be free to express our opinions at all times. That's what America is built on. Right? That's what one of the things that makes America unique, is that you can have freedom of expression. Number one. Number two, all of us should seek opinions that are different than our own. That's how we grow intellectually. Third, there's a way to have a conversation that's intelligent, and there's a way to have a conversation that's destructive. And what we have to be, any of us who are quote unquote leaders, should be showing people and forcing people to understand that smart dialogue, even if you don't agree, can be civil and can be productive. Even if at the end of it, I look at you in the eye and go, Andrea, I just don't agree with you. And you look at me in the eye and go, I just don't agree with you, and that's okay. Yeah. But we can have our points of view without getting into name calling and things like that. The last piece that personally really bothers me is, as somebody who moved to this country a long time ago, to escape what happens in most South American countries, which is socialism and the absolute prison of those ideas, because it sounds great. Bentleys for everybody, free houses for everybody, free everything, and it's all fake. None of that happens, but people who espouse those views will convince a group of people to follow them and then get entrapped by it. You look at the countries that have done it, it's not my opinion, you look at Venezuela, wealthiest country in South America, has to import oil because they've devastated that country so much. You look at Cuba, and I've physically been to Cuba. You go there, and it's not an academic exercise. You see what communism has done. Fidel Castro and Che Guevara promised the world to all these people, all these rich, wealthy people who are taking advantage of you. We're going to change that. We're going to give you opportunity. We're going to give you this. We're going to give you that. Those people are bludgeoned. They're poor beyond any comprehension we have of poor. So it's just a failed experiment. You look at China, you look at North Korea, you look at Russia, all those countries. What we have to do is understand that what built America is freedom, opportunity, a government that's by the people, for the people, not a government that tells us what to do and that controls every aspect of our lives. So when I see people that are pushing those, by the way, I say that democratic socialist is just a remarketed way of saying a democratic fascist, because it's the same thing. So I am very, very, very aggressive about that. And one of the things that I'll tell you, very unpopular thing to say, but I like to get myself in trouble, is I think people, I'm not an elected official, I'm nobody. I'm a guy who just likes to sell Aston Bentleys and Rolls, right? But the people who are elected officials who know better should be pushing back on that harder than they do. They should be the ones saying, no, you know what? This is what makes America America, and those people are just, what they want is power for themselves. And so when they take shots at people who are wealthy, successful, and try to demonize them, it's because what they really want is the power themselves. Just don't be tricked by that. So listen, I try to keep that just on Twitter. That's like my Twitter channel. On Facebook, I try to be, hey, what's up with your daughter? What a beautiful baseball game. But on Twitter, that's what I do. I probably shouldn't. It's probably bad for me from a business perspective, but I think that viewpoint needs to be out there.
I do think that on the back end of this, people are going to be craving more like just, wow, what a beautiful day, look at the lake, or just positivity. Absolutely. Or things that bring them value, feed them with knowledge, make them feel smarter, or just make them happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that's what it should be, right? Again, it goes back to you can disagree without being disagreeable. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's one of the things that really attracted me to be in the Cleveland State Board and academics in general. Academic freedom really has that. That's what it is. You want to have controversial positions. You want that. Like, you want a professor to challenge you one way or the other. If you walked in, what would you learn if you walked in with a viewpoint and all that you were taught was that same viewpoint? It'd be just intellectually very boring, right? And by the way, you said earlier about changing your mind. There's been many times when I've listened to somebody who had a very different viewpoint than mine. I go, you know what, that's a good point, and I've changed my opinion as a result of that. That's not a negative thing. No. It's just bad in politics, which is why I have no interest in politics, because that's really bad in politics, right? If somebody said that, can you imagine they're on a debate on the Senate floor, and then somebody stood up and goes, you know what, you just made a great point. I now totally agree with you. That the building would collapse.
I know, but I feel like to the average person, we go, that is so refreshing.
Exactly.
Somebody said, I never thought about it that way.
Of course.
You gave me something to think about.
Sure. And that happens with age. I think sometimes if you're 20, 25, 30, you think that your viewpoint is the only one, but as we get older, we realize, hey, the way I thought about certain things today is very different than when I thought about it 20 years ago. Gay marriage would probably be the best example in the world, right? When you and I were teenagers, gay marriage would have seemed crazy, right? Today, the fact that we thought it was crazy seems crazy, right?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And we would have been in the minority. So things evolved and the world changes, and that's a good thing, but it happens with constructive dialogue, not with, racist this and blah, blah, blah. And by the way, those terms should be left for the people who actually are that way. And there's, in a country of 350 million, of course there's going to be people who are that way. But let's leave those words to label those people, not use it so that you're labeling everybody that way, because it loses meaning.
Well, I remember when you did your first inaugural Cars in Cleveland, and you said very simply, cars bring people together, because you had all ages,
Absolutely.
all backgrounds, all socioeconomic
Absolutely.
levels. People love looking at cars, and they're there with their family.
Sure.
So hopefully we will at some point move into a time when we can celebrate that.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
And like I said, and these cars, there's a therapeutic element. I've had a doctor who said to me, hey, I bought this car because when I have to look at a patient and tell them they have 6 months to live because they have cancer, it just rips my heart out. And I got to get my head back in, and I get in my car, I put the top down, I drive down Lake Road, just feel better. And that's what these cars do. So it's not, because I think people sometimes look at it and go, oh, this is about being ostentatious and showing how wealthy you are and all that good stuff. That's not that. Maybe it is for some people.
For some people.
Sure. But the other part is just appreciation for the way the headlights looks like a piece of jewelry and the way the chrome work makes the car look. So it's all these pieces and parts, and really appreciating that is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Thanks for the conversation. You're always interesting. Always learn something new. Now, which one of these can I drive?
The white one we talked about.